We were talking with BC's chief coroner earlier in the program about the numbers released today. In June of this year, 175 suspected illicit drug toxicity deaths. That's overdose deaths, the highest number ever recorded in one single month. That surpasses what we recorded in May. 80% of those who die of drug overdoses are men, and 68% of those dying this year are in the age group of 19 to 49. So we thought it would be timely to chat with Brian MacDonald. He reached out to the program yesterday. He is a filmmaker, but also a recovering opioid addict, and wanted to share his story. Brian, thank you so much for reaching out to us.
You're very welcome, Jill, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
As somebody who is a recovering opioid addict, and I think you've been 18 years without using drugs, how do you respond when you hear the numbers that in the month of June alone, 175 people died?
Not surprising. When it comes to what addiction ultimately is about isolation and disconnection. And what is COVID, brought us isolation, disconnect. And so in this era, if you're inclined to be an addict or in active addiction, all that stuff is just going to amplify. And so it is not surprising, 175 deaths. It's very unfortunate, and I really feel for the families of the deceased. But, it's a tough one. Yeah, there's no question.
How did you become addicted?
Geez, how many days do you have here? But the bottom line was I was suffering from traumatic experiences that I subconsciously knew about, but consciously had no concept about. I was feeling very off-center, and in my early 30s, I looked at my house. I had a wife, a child, and it was just flatlined, gray. Everything was gray. There was no joy. There was no illumination in life. There was nothing that was turning my crank to move forward. And so from there into a deep depression, and then one day I made a conscious decision. It was a conscious decision. And I know that there's detractors in regards to addicts, you deserve what you get type of thing. But I made some bad choices, and within a very short period of time, I became addicted to heroin. And within 3 years, was hanging out in the downtown east side from, a nice house in the hills to the downtown east side within 3 years. And that's where it brings you.
And people will hear that, I would imagine, and be surprised that it can happen so quickly, and you can go from that place to such a different place. So how did you break that cycle?
My God, that I began using in earnest around 1993. I got clean in 2002. I ended up in a total of 9 rehab centers. You get engaged with legal troubles, which is part of the drill. Your intention, you have good intentions, but you just don't have anything in your toolbox to be able to pull yourself out. The rehab centers that I went to were not very well equipped to deal with really what 95% of addicts are all about. They have underlying traumatic experiences to one extent or another. And I never even knew this until I got to my very last rehab in 2002. That took me, it was an 8-week inpatient program. And by week 6, I was realizing that my traumatic incidents in my life were physical and verbal abuse by a family member, my father in specific, who left the family when I was 5. But I was sexually abused numerous times by the time I was 11. And you tuck that stuff so deep inside, it does sit in the background, and eventually it has to come out sometime. And that was the day in which I can correlate to that depression that began in earnest, and drug use shortly thereafter. And for about 3 months, I felt that the drug, heroin at the time, it was my medication. It made all that stuff small. It made I felt included in society. I didn't feel so detached or disconnected. And but that lasted a very short period of time. And after 3 months, it was just seeking, getting, using, that whole cycle that went for, pretty well 9 years straight. And living in the, most horrendous conditions, and hanging out with I call it the most honest place in Canada, which is the downtown east side. Why I say that is because it's real. What you see is real. It's people suffering. And, I was one of those people. And I did create a film that's done that has appeared in film festivals, and I recut that thing here over the last few months during COVID, ironically. That is all about my story and through my eyes and through the eyes of 5 people that were close to me, being my former wife, my mother, and 3 others. And that film really does illustrate very clearly as to how they saw me go down, the hurts and the confusion and the chaos that you bring to the table. Was horrible. And but by the time I was in my second to last week in rehab, it was something that became very apparent that I was traumatized as a very young child, and I had to do something about it. I have to forgive the people and my perpetrators that ended up, causing this situation for me and my family.
Do you think if more treatment, we focus a lot on harm reduction. Do you think if more treatment was made available, more people would be able to do what you did and get away from that lifestyle?
Absolutely. I was privileged in a way that it was a pay-for treatment in 2002, and it was quite expensive. My mother actually got the money together to put me through. Most people are in that situation. The previous 8 rehabs were public, and that's where there's a lot of problems within a lot of those institutions. And but yes, there has to be a redevelopment from the ground up in regards to what treatment is about and what you treat. Drug addiction is only a symptom of what's going on inside the individual, and it's a tough nut to crack. And a lot of people who are in addiction go, "I got a good life," but the bottom line is there's something there that's pushing them into this destructive behavior. And I had the privilege of talking to Dr. Gabor Mate for one of my documentaries, and he talks a lot about trauma, and trauma is in so many ways converts into addiction for 95+% of who you see on the downtown east side. That has to be taken care of. That has to be recognized.
All right. Just before I let you go, I know a lot of people will be inspired by this, probably want to learn more. Is there a website or somewhere people can go look at the film or learn more about you?
Yeah, I can send a link out to people. It's still in a distribution deal scenario. So v12films.com, and through contact, you can contact me. I'd be more than happy to help out people who want to see this film and see how the whole resolution from why to how one gets into recovery and everything else in between. I would be more than happy to send that link out to v12films.com.
All right. Well, Brian, thanks so much for reaching out to us, and thanks for coming on the program today. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, Jill. Have a great day.